Verified department records. Genuine field evidence. Unbiased justice. Welcome to Bodycam Incident Reports.
Step away from the vehicle. Now, put it down.
I'm washing my own truck, officer. My hands are visible.
You fit the description. Dirty clothes, suspicious behavior.
Suspicion isn't a crime. Am I being detained or am I free to go?
Don't lecture me. Give me your ID.
Then tell me the crime.
So step back.
Before we witnessed the incident that forced a major American city to write a check for $2.4 million, I need you to do something. Pause this story right now. Look at the subscribe button. If you believe that our veterans deserve respect and that police officers must be held to the highest standards of the law, click that button. Comment below with your state or country. Let's get the truth out there. Marcus Thorne did not look like a millionaire, nor did he look like one of the most respected civic leaders in the state of Georgia. On this particular Tuesday morning, under the bright, unforgiving sun of a humid southern spring, he looked like exactly what he was, a man who loved his truck. The 1969 Ford F-100 Ranger was his pride and joy, a restoration project that had taken him 5 years of weekends and bruised knuckles. It was finished in a pristine Wimbledon white, and Marcus washed it by hand every week at the self-service bays on Elm Street. He wore his working clothes, a pair of grease-stained Dickies coveralls and worn-out leather boots. He moved with the stiffness of a man who had jumped out of airplanes for a living in his 20s and paid for it in his 60s. The car wash was quiet. The only sound was the rhythmic hiss of the high-pressure sprayer as Marcus rinsed the soapy foam from the truck's fender. He was humming a quiet tune, enjoying the solitude. He had the sprayer in his right hand and a microfiber mitt in his left. He was completely absorbed in the task, his back to the street entrance. He didn't hear the cruiser pull up. The first indication that his peace was shattered was the aggressive slam of a car door, followed immediately by a voice cracking with adrenaline. "Hey, you step away from the vehicle." Marcus turned slowly. He didn't drop the sprayer. He simply lowered the nozzle toward the ground. He saw a police officer striding toward him across the wet concrete. Officer Kyle Braden was young, perhaps 28, with a high and tight haircut that looked fresh and a uniform that was a size too tight in the chest. His hand was already hovering over his holster. "Can I help you, officer?" Marcus asked. His voice was a deep baritone, the kind of voice that had commanded briefing rooms in the Pentagon. It was calm-leveled and completely devoid of fear. "I said, step away from the truck. Put the equipment down," Braden shouted, closing the distance rapidly. "We have reports of a vagrant vandalizing equipment and soliciting customers." Marcus looked around the empty bay. "I am the customer's son, and I'm washing my own truck." "I'm not your son. I'm Officer Braden, and you fit the description. Dirty clothes, loitering, acting erratic." "I am washing a vehicle. That is the intended purpose of this facility," Marcus said, his grip on the sprayer wand firm but non-threatening. "And I paid $3.25 for this cycle, so I intend to finish rinsing my hood." "Drop the wand now." Braden's hand unsnapped the retention strap on his holster. Marcus sighed, a sound of profound disappointment. He carefully placed the sprayer wand into its holster on the wall. The machine continued to hum the timer, ticking down his remaining minutes. He turned to face the officer, fully wiping his soapy hands on a rag he pulled from his pocket. "My hands are empty," Marcus said, holding them out at waist-level, palms up. "I am standing still. I am not a vagrant. This is my vehicle. Now please tell me why you are interrupting me." Braden stopped 5 feet away. The lack of fear in the older man's eyes seemed to irritate him. He was used to people flinching. He was used to "yes, sir," and "sorry, sir." He wasn't used to a black man in dirty coveralls looking at him like he was a subordinate who had missed a belt loop during inspection. "I need to see ID," Braden snapped. "Right now." Marcus didn't reach for his wallet. He didn't move an inch. He had served 28 years in the United States Marine Corps. He had taken oaths to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. He knew the document better than he knew the back of his own hand. He knew that the Fourth Amendment wasn't just a suggestion. It was the law of the land written in the blood of patriots. Officer Braden, Marcus said, reading the name tag. Am I being detained, or am I free to go? You're being detained until I identify you, Braden said, moving slightly to the left, trying to gain a tactical angle on a man who wasn't fighting. For what crime? Marcus asked. Under Terry v. Ohio, you need reasonable suspicion that a crime has been committed, is being committed, or is about to be committed. Washing a truck is not a crime. Wearing work clothes is not a crime. Braden's face flushed a deep, angry red. I told you, we had a call. A suspicious person. A call is not reasonable suspicion by itself unless you corroborate it with your own observation of criminal conduct, Marcus countered. His tone was not argumentative. It was educational. It was the tone of a senior officer correcting a junior lieutenant who had failed to read the mission brief. You arrived. You saw a man washing a truck. You saw no vandalism. You saw no solicitation. Your investigation should have concluded the moment you saw I was a paying customer. Stop with the law school crap, Braden spat. I don't need a lecture from a homeless guy. I need your ID. If you don't give it to me, you are obstructing an investigation. That is an arrestable offense. I am not homeless, Marcus said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming colder. And I am not refusing to identify myself if you can articulate a valid reason for the stop. But you cannot. You are fishing. You are profiling. And I will not surrender my rights just because you are impatient. By now, the commotion had drawn attention. A young couple vacuuming their sedan 2 bays over had stopped. The woman holding a smartphone stepped closer. She held the phone horizontally, framing the shot perfectly. Marcus noticed her and gave a barely perceptible nod. Witnesses. Last chance, Braden said. He pulled his taser from his belt. The yellow plastic gleamed in the sunlight. ID or you go down. Officer, I have a service-connected disability, Marcus said, clearly speaking for the body camera and the bystander's phone. I have a fused L4 and L5 vertebrae. I require a cane to walk long distances, which is inside the cab of my truck. If you force me to the ground, you will cause me severe bodily injury. I am posing no threat. My hands are visible. Do not do this. Braden didn't hear the warning. He only heard defiance. In his mind, he was the authority, and this man was challenging it. He had been on the force for 4 years, and he had learned that compliance was mandatory, and questions were disrespect. He holstered the taser and stepped forward, grabbing Marcus's left wrist. That's it. You're under arrest. For what? Marcus demanded, not pulling away, but stiffening his arm. Articulate the charge. Resisting arrest, Braden yelled. You cannot arrest someone for resisting arrest if there was no underlying crime to arrest them for, Marcus shouted back. That is circular logic. But logic had left the conversation minutes ago. The physical contact changed everything. Braden, realizing that the older man was stronger and heavier than he looked, panicked. He attempted an armbar takedown, a maneuver designed to off-balance a suspect and force them prone. Marcus, with decades of combat training ingrained in his muscle memory, instinctively knew how to counter it. He could have broken the officer's wrist in a second. He could have dislocated Braden's shoulder. But Marcus knew that if he fought back, if he even appeared to fight back, he would likely be shot. So Marcus Thorne, a man who had earned the Silver Star for valor in the desert, did the hardest thing he had ever done. He went limp. He allowed the young officer to twist his arm behind his back. Get down! Get on the ground! Braden screamed, his voice cracking. I'm going! Marcus grunted, pain shooting through his lower back like a lightning bolt. Slow down! My back! Braden didn't slow down. He kicked Marcus's legs apart. The veteran's boots slipped on the soapy wet concrete. Marcus fell hard. He didn't hit the ground. He slammed into it. His chest struck the wet pavement, the breath driving out of his lungs in a harsh whoosh. The soap burned his eyes. The water soaked instantly through his coveralls. Stop fighting! Braden yelled, dropping his knee directly into the center of Marcus's back. A sound sickening and audible popped from Marcus's spine. Marcus let out a guttural roar of agony. "My back, I told you, my back. Shut up." Braden pressed his full weight down, grinding the older man's face into the chemical sludge of the car wash floor. He grabbed Marcus's other wrist and wrenched it back, snapping the handcuffs on with unnecessary force. "Hey, he said he's hurt," the woman recording the video screamed from 20 feet away. "He told you he was disabled. Get off him." "Back up," Braden yelled at her, one hand on his pepper spray. "Back the hell up or you're next." Marcus lay on the concrete, gasping for air. The pain was blinding, a white-hot nausea rolling over him, but his mind remained clear. He was memorizing everything: the pressure of the knee, the time of day, the officer's badge number 492, which he had spotted on the chest plate, the smell of the tire cleaner. "Officer 492, Marcus whispered into the wet concrete. "You have just assaulted a disabled veteran without cause. You have violated my civil rights under Section 1983. You have ignored a medical warning. You are currently torturing a citizen." "I said shut up." Braden hauled Marcus up by the handcuffs. Marcus cried out as his shoulders were hyperextended. His legs wouldn't work properly. The nerve impingement from the back injury was causing his left foot to drag. "Look at him!" the bystander yelled. "He can't walk! You broke his back!" "He's faking," Braden muttered, panting heavily. He dragged Marcus toward the cruiser. Marcus stumbled, his boots scraping uselessly against the asphalt. Braden opened the back door and shoved Marcus inside. The colonel had to twist violently to fit his large frame into the cramped plastic seat, sending fresh waves of agony through his spine. The door slammed shut. The silence inside the cruiser was sudden and absolute. Marcus leaned his head against the plexiglass divider. He closed his eyes. He wasn't crying. He was planning. Officer Braden climbed into the driver's seat. He was sweating profusely, his hands trembling slightly as he gripped the steering wheel. The adrenaline dump was hitting him now. He checked the rearview mirror. The suspect was sitting perfectly still, staring out the window with a terrifyingly calm expression. Braden picked up the radio. "Dispatch 1 Adam 12. 1 in custody. Resisting obstruction. En route to station." "Copy, Adam 12. The dispatcher's voice crackled. Braden put the car in gear and pulled out of the car wash. He replayed the encounter in his head. The man hadn't swung at him. The man hadn't run. The man had quoted case law. Why did he know case law? Most vagrants just swore or begged. This guy spoke like a lawyer, or a judge. Braden glanced at the mirror again. "You got a name?" he asked, trying to sound tough, but his voice wavered. Marcus didn't answer immediately. He waited a full 10 seconds. "You will find out my name when you process me, officer. And when you do, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember that I gave you every opportunity to walk away." "Yeah, whatever," Braden scoffed. "You guys always have a big story." "It's not a story," Marcus said softly. "It is a record. I am mentally cataloging every second of this transport. You did not buckle my seatbelt. That is a violation of department policy. You are driving 45 in a 35 zone without lights or sirens. That is a violation. You failed to double lock the handcuffs and they are tightening as we drive, cutting off circulation. Violation." Braden instinctively checked his speedometer and slowed down. A knot of unease began to tighten in his stomach. The guy in the back didn't sound like a criminal. He sounded like authority. "You better hope you have a clean record," Braden muttered. "My record is immaculate," Marcus replied. "Can you say the same, son?" The rest of the drive passed in silence. Braden's mind began to race. What if he isn't a vagrant? What if he really is a vet? The captain hates bad press with vets. But Braden shook it off. The guy looked like a bum. He He was washing an old truck in the middle of the day. He was probably just some crazy old guy who read too much on the internet. They arrived at the precinct. Braden pulled into the sally port, the heavy metal doors clanging shut behind them. The sound was final. There was no going back now. He hauled Marcus out of the car. Marcus's left leg gave way and he nearly fell. Braden had to hold him up. "Stop the drama," Braden hissed. "I can't feel my left foot," Marcus said. "I need medical attention. You'll get a nurse after booking." Braden marched him through the heavy security doors and into the processing area. The room was cold, smelling of bleach and old coffee. Sergeant Miller was behind the high desk. Miller was 55, a 30-year veteran who had seen it all. He looked up over his reading glasses as Braden dragged Marcus in. Miller's eyes went from Braden to Marcus. He saw the wet coveralls. He saw the way Marcus was standing, favoring his back. He saw the dignity in the man's face, despite the humiliation. "What do we have here, Kyle?" Miller asked, his voice weary. "Obstruction-resisting disorderly," Braden rattled off. "Refused ID vagrant acting suspicious at the car wash." "Vagrant," Miller repeated, looking at Marcus's hands. They were calloused, yes, but manicured. The watch on his wrist, which Braden hadn't noticed, was a vintage Rolex Submariner. Miller frowned. Vagrants didn't wear $10,000 watches. "Sir," Miller said to Marcus, a subtle shift in tone. "I need to take your property." Braden uncuffed one of Marcus's hands so he could retrieve his wallet. Marcus moved slowly, grimacing. He reached into the wet pocket of his coveralls and pulled out a slim black leather wallet. He placed it on the counter. "My identification is in the center flap," Marcus said. Sergeant Miller opened the wallet. The leather was high quality, distinctively expensive. He slid out the driver's license. Marcus Aurelius Thorne, D.O.B., April 12, 1962. Address 1400 Highland Avenue. Miller froze. Highland Avenue was the wealthiest street in the city. The mayor lived on Highland Avenue. This wasn't a vagrant's address. Miller dug deeper into the wallet. He pulled out a card that was blue and white with a gold chip. A Department of Defense retiree identification card. Rank Colonel retired. "You're a colonel?" Miller asked, looking up his eyes wide. "Marine Corps," Marcus said. 28 years. Braden shifted uncomfortably behind Marcus. "He didn't tell me that." Braden lied. "I told you I was a veteran," Marcus corrected. "You didn't ask for specifics. You told me to shut up." Miller wasn't done. He pulled out another card. This one was laminated and bore the city seal. It wasn't a credit card. It was an official city credential. Chairman Civilian Police Oversight Board, City of Atlanta, Marcus Thorne. The room went dead silent. The hum of the computer servers seemed to vanish. Sergeant Miller held the card like it was a live grenade. He looked at the card. He looked at Marcus. He looked at Officer Braden. Braden was squinting at the card. "What is that?" "You don't know." Miller whispered, his face draining of color. "Kyle, this is the man who signs off on the disciplinary hearings. This is the chairman of the Oversight Board. He's the one who reviews use of force complaints." Braden felt the blood leave his head. He felt dizzy. What? "I was appointed by the city council 3 months ago," Marcus said pleasantly, "to root out exactly this kind of behavior. I was actually going to visit the precinct next week for an inspection. I suppose I arrived early." Miller dropped the wallet. He scrambled for the phone. "I need the watch, Commander. Now. Yes, wake him up if you have to. It's a code red." Braden took a step back. I didn't know. He refused ID. He was washing his car, Kyle," Miller snapped, losing his professional cool. "You arrested the chairman of the Oversight Board for washing his car." And for being black, Marcus added. Let's not forget that part. Because if I was a white man in coveralls washing a vintage Ford, you would have complimented the truck. That's not true, Braden stammered. The video will prove it, Marcus said. There were witnesses. They recorded everything. The racial epithets, no. But the tone, the aggression, the immediate assumption of criminality. That is bias, Officer Braden. And you are about to become the textbook example of why my board exists. Captain Reynolds burst through the double doors 3 minutes later. He wasn't wearing his tie. He looked like a man who had just been told his house was on fire. He took one look at Marcus Thorne standing in wet clothes, handcuffed to the bench, and closed his eyes in physical pain. Uncuff him, Reynolds barked. Right now. What the hell is wrong with you people? Miller hurried to unlock the cuffs. Marcus rubbed his wrists. Deep red welts were already forming. Colonel Thorne, Reynolds said, walking over with his hands out, pleading. Sir, I cannot express how sorry I am. There has been a terrible misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding, Captain, Marcus said, refusing to shake the offered hand. There was a failure of training, a failure of judgment, and a violation of law. Your officer assaulted a disabled man because he didn't like my tone. We will handle this internally, sir, immediately. You are free to go. We'll drive you back to your vehicle. I'll have it detailed. No, Marcus interrupted. You will not handle this internally, and I am not leaving. Reynolds blinked. Sir, I want to be processed, Marcus said firmly. I want my mugshot taken. I want my fingerprints scanned. I want the booking report filed. I want Officer Braden to write his statement of probable cause under penalty of perjury. Colonel, please. Reynolds lowered his voice. We don't need to do that. This goes on a record. That is exactly what I want, Marcus said. I want the record. I want the paper trail. Because if you release me now and wipe the computer, you will claim this never happened. You will claim it was a consensual encounter. No, I want the evidence. He turned to Braden, who was shrinking into the corner. Write your report, son. Write down exactly why you felt the need to kneel on a spinal injury. And remember, the body camera footage will be compared to every word you type. For the next hour, the precinct operated in a state of terrified efficiency. They booked their own boss. They took the fingerprints of the man who controlled their budget reviews. Marcus stood for his mugshot with his head high, the wet coveralls clinging to his frame, his face a mask of stone. When it was done, Marcus accepted his release papers. He took his wallet. He turned to Captain Reynolds. I am going to the hospital now. My orthopedist will be documenting the damage to my fusion. Then I am calling my attorney. Do not destroy any evidence. If 1 second of that body cam footage goes missing, I will have your badge next to Braden's. Marcus limped out of the station. He called an Uber. He didn't look back. The lawsuit hit the desk of the city attorney on Thursday morning. It wasn't a polite letter. It was a sledgehammer. Thorne versus City of Atlanta et al. It alleged false arrest, excessive force assault, battery malicious prosecution, and violations of the Americans with Disabilities Act. But the lawsuit was just the paperwork. The real bomb detonated on Friday. The bystander's video hit social media. The title was simple: Cop breaks veteran's back for washing his car. The video was brutal. It showed the beautiful vintage truck. It showed the calm older man. And then it showed the violence. The sound of Marcus screaming, "My back," echoed on laptops and smartphones across the world. The crunch of his body hitting the concrete was sickening. Within 4 hours, it had 2 million views. By the weekend, it was on CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC. The contrast was impossible to ignore. The dignified, articulate black veteran versus the screaming, out-of-control white officer. Then Marcus's legal team released the body camera footage. It was even worse. The high-definition audio picked up Braden's sneering dismissal of Marcus's rights. It picked up the "shut up" and the "vagrant" comments. It showed Braden ignoring the medical warning. The public outcry was deafening. Protests formed outside the precinct. "Justice for the Colonel." Signs bobbed in the sea of angry faces. Veterans groups, usually supportive of law enforcement, issued scathing statements condemning Braden's actions. The Marine Corps League mobilized, demanding accountability. The city attorney called an emergency meeting with the mayor and the police chief. "We have to settle," the attorney said, tossing the file onto the table. "We have zero defense. He's the oversight chair, for God's sake. He warned the officer. He cited case law. He was compliant. And we broke his back. Literally. His doctor says he needs revision surgery. That's $1 million in medical bills alone." "Can we offer him $500,000? The mayor asked, looking pale. "If we offer him $500,000, he will take us to trial and a jury will give him $10 million. Ganda," the attorney said. "He doesn't want money. He wants blood. He wants Braden gone, and he wants policy changes." "Give him what he wants," the chief said, rubbing his temples. "Braden is a liability. I've got 3 other complaints on him I didn't know about until yesterday. Get rid of him." The settlement was announced 2 months later. The city of Atlanta agreed to pay Marcus Thorne $2.4 million in damages. It was the largest single plaintiff settlement for a non-lethal force case in the city's history. But the check was just the beginning. Officer Kyle Braden was fired. He was also indicted by a grand jury for aggravated assault and violation of oath of office. The video evidence was too overwhelming to ignore. He faced up to 10 years in prison. His career in law enforcement was over. His name was added to the National Decertification Index, ensuring he would never carry a badge again. The police department implemented the Thorne Protocol. It required mandatory de-escalation for nonviolent offenses. It required officers to heed medical warnings immediately. It mandated that a supervisor be present before any physical force was used on a subject over the age of 60, barring an immediate threat to life. 6 months after the incident, Marcus Thorne returned to the car wash. He walked with a new cane, a sleek carbon fiber model. His surgery had been successful, but the ache would never fully go away. He pulled his 1969 Ford F-100 into the same bay. The truck gleamed in the sun. He put $3 in quarters into the machine. He picked up the sprayer. A patrol car rolled by slowly. The officer inside, a young woman, slowed down. She looked at Marcus. She saw the truck. She saw the man. She gave a respectful wave and kept driving. Marcus nodded back. He squeezed the trigger and the water hissed against the white paint. He wasn't just washing a truck anymore. He was reclaiming his space. He was proving that dignity once taken could be fought for and won back. The story of Marcus Thorne is a victory, but it is a bitter one. He had to be a colonel, a chairman, and a millionaire to get the justice that every citizen deserves. What if he had been a janitor? What if he had been a teacher? Would the camera footage have mattered as much? Would the city have written the check? We must demand a system where your title doesn't determine your treatment. Justice should be blind to rank, but it must be open-eyed to the truth. Have you ever witnessed an abuse of power that went unpunished? Do you think the $2.4 million settlement was enough for a broken back and a violated oath? Let me know in the comments below. And please subscribe to the channel. We are building a community that refuses to stay silent.
This concludes today's report. To access more official footage, please like and subscribe. Thank you for choosing Bodycam Incident Reports.